Welcome students. As you know, Institute has introduced GST for 10 marks in indirect tax paper for November 2017 attempt, and this lecture is for that GST portion. The lectures are available on my free site idtvaidya.com on the home page. The videos for the same is available on my free site idtvaidya.com on the home page. Material for the same is available in the download section. Before attending the lecture, before watching this video lecture, please take download of the material, and along with that you listen to these videos. That will be of great value for you. If you go to download section, you find that for GST there are 4 materials available. First is the basic material, which I have named as CA Final November 2017 GST for 10 marks. This is the basic material, a 32 pager. Then there is one Annexure 1. Annexure 1 we don't require from the second revision onwards. What we are going to do is that when we watch the video, simultaneously at some point of time we are going to read Annexure 1. But then from second revision onwards you will not require Annexure 1, because Annexure 1 summary has been already incorporated in the main material. Annexure 1 we need to read only once. And then there is one more material available. Of this 32 pager, I have prepared a nice summary. You can take download of the summary also, and in the last revisions, instead of using the main material, you can use my summary. Also, there is fourth material available. Once you gain the confidence that you have really understood this subject, you can take download of this material, the possible questions and answers. I have given my best efforts to give as many possible questions as possible with the suggested answers. So, idea is watch my video. After you gain the confidence, take the download of question and answers, read the question, imagine the answer, check the answer, and you will gain the confidence. One point I want to bring to your notice, that this time Institute has introduced GST only for 10 marks, and there is only a very limited portion. While preparing this video, what I have done, not a single word extra, not a single word less. Exactly what is the syllabus for us, that I have tried to cover here. GST, as you know, is going to be a very vast subject, but here we are very specific. Institute has selected a part of that as a syllabus for November 2017. While preparing my material, or while preparing these videos, what care I have taken is not a single word more, not a single word less. That is my approach. Having said that, now we can start. There are going to be 2 lectures. There are going to be 2 videos. This is the first video. If you look at, please take the basic material, the 32 pager. In that, the first page is content page. As you can see, in all there are 8 chapters. First lecture will complete up to 4 chapter. That is up to page number 12. That is the first lecture. And second lecture we are going to complete chapter number 5, 6, 7, 8. So in the first lecture, basic concepts is covered, levy is covered, reverse charge is covered, and input tax credit is covered. That is in the first lecture. And in the second lecture, concept of supply, study of schedule 2, schedule 3, and composite and mixed supply. That is the second lecture. So let us start with the first lecture. First lecture is going to run into 12 pages. Before we actually study it, let me give you the overview of these 12 pages. Let us first understand what is all that we are going to study in this first lecture. On page 1 is the disadvantage of the old system, then the way GST was introduced, what were the various events, what were the landmark events which took place before introduction of GST. So that is genesis of GST in India. That is the second point we are going to study. Then Next is we are going to study what were constitutional amendments that were required to introduce GST, which is followed up by what is GST Council. Then it is followed up by what is concept of GST, which is followed up by which are the taxes which subsumed into GST. Then features of GST, how the dual model of GST is introduced in India. Then what are the benefits of GST? Then about levy and definition of India. After that, we are going to study reverse charge mechanism. Reverse charge mechanism, there are two parts. First part is where liability to pay is on service receiver, and second part is where liability to pay is on electronic commerce operator. That is the reverse charge we will study. And then page number 9 to page number 12 is about how the input tax credit is going to operate. So that is the scope of the first lecture. That is what we are going to study in the first lecture. And even before we actually start studying it, I want to explain you some concept. Let us understand that concept. Okay. Please understand, there is going to be CGST Act. There is going to be SGST Act. There is going to be IGST Act. There is going to be UT GST Act. And then there is one more act which is for state compensation, which has not been made part of our syllabus for this 10 marks. So I am not going to talk about it. As far as our 10 mark syllabus is concerned, we are only going to study little about CGST Act, SGST Act, IGST Act and UTGST Act. First, let us understand what is intrastate and interstate. For example, this is state of Maharashtra. For example, this is state of Maharashtra, and the supplier is from Maharashtra and point of supply is also in Maharashtra. This is called as intrastate transaction. If it is intrastate transaction, on this transaction CGST is payable and SGST is payable. First understand, in second lecture we are going to learn what do you mean by supply. Today I assume that we know what is supply. Please understand, when it was excise, the taxable event was manufacture. In service tax, provisioning of service was the taxable event. In VAT or CST, sale was the taxable event. All those acts have merged into GST, submerged into GST, and in GST, taxable event is supply of goods and services. Whether goods or services, the treatment remains the same on both, on supply of goods as well as supply of services, or on supply of both. Liability is of GST. That is the topic for second lecture. What is the true meaning of supply? What do you mean by supply of goods? What do you mean by supply of services? What do you mean by supply of both? That is the topic for tomorrow, but for time being I assume that we know what is supply. Then in that case, supply can be of two types. Either it can be intrastate or it can be interstate. If it is intrastate, what do you mean by intrastate? The supplier of goods or services is also from Maharashtra and place of supply is also in Maharashtra. If you remember, in service tax we have learnt place of provision of service rules. By applying place of provision of service rules, we were determining where the service is deemed to have been provided. Just like that, there are rules in GST. The name of the rules is place of supply rules. Again, in 10 marks syllabus, place of supply rules are not part of our syllabus. But then assume that by applying place of supply rules, you have determined place of supply. Now, in my example, supplier is from Maharashtra and place of supply is also in Maharashtra. If that is true, then on this transaction, this will be considered as intrastate transaction, and on this supply, there is a liability of CGST plus SGST. Second possibility is that it is a union territory. Suppose this is a union territory. Supplier is also from union territory, and place of supply is also within the same union territory. So supplier is in union territory and place of supply is also union territory, and supplier has supplied either goods or services. On this, GST is payable, and what is payable is CGST and UTGST. Now comes the next option. In the next option, for example, this is Maharashtra and this is Tamil Nadu. Supplier is from Maharashtra and place of supply is in Tamil Nadu. Supplier had supplied either goods or services to a recipient from Tamil Nadu. Now please understand, supplier is from Maharashtra and place of supply is in Tamil Nadu. This is a transaction between two states. We are going to call it interstate transaction. And on interstate transaction, he has supplied either goods or services. On the value, the liability is of IGST. Please understand, IGST has two components. Suppose normal CGST rate on these goods is 9%, and suppose SGST rate on these goods is 9%, then you will find that IGST payable on these goods is 18%. So in other words, IGST is nothing but has two components. One component is CGST component and one component is SGST component. So even before we get into the details, few things I wanted to bring to your notice. First thing which I brought to your notice is that there is a CGST Act and then there is a SGST Act. Every state will have own SGST Act. There is one CGST Act. There is one IGST Act and there is one UTGST Act. For intrastate transaction, CGST plus SGST will be payable. For intra-union territory transaction, CGST plus UTGST will be payable, and for interstate transaction, IGST will be payable. That is the knowledge, that is the general overview. Of course, everything we are going to study in detail now, but this was just an overview. Now, having said all this, now let us open the material, the basic material. And now let us go in order. Here I am on page number 1. What are the disadvantages of existing system? That is the first question possible, and there are 7 disadvantages. First one is multiplicity of taxes. As you know, under old laws, indirect taxes, as far as manufacturing is concerned, there was excise duty, so there was Excise Act. Then there was textile and textile article duty. Then there was goods of special importance. Then there was Medicine and Toilet Preparations Act. Then there was Finance Act 2005 Health Cess. For quite some time, education cess and higher education cess was payable on excise duty. Then there was service tax. As far as VAT is concerned, every state had its own VAT laws. For interstate transaction, there was CST. On local authority levels, there was octroys. So the problem with old indirect tax system was there was a multiplicity of taxes. Please understand, when there is a multiplicity of taxes, the manufacturer or the supplier, now we'll call him supplier, but that time manufacturer will have to take so many registrations. He have to deal with so many departments and so much of compliances he will have to do. Also, when the goods reach consumer, already they have suffered multiplicity of taxes. So one of the disadvantages of old indirect taxes was multiplicity of taxes. The second disadvantage was the various indirect taxes being levied are not necessarily mutually exclusive. For example, when you are manufacturing the goods, please understand, I have set up my factory and I have done manufacturing under Excise Act. When I remove my goods on my selling price, there was excise duty which was under Central Act, and also VAT liability was there. So I was under governance of center as well as state. Here the point is there were various indirect taxes being levied and they were not mutually exclusive. For example, when the goods are manufactured and sold, both central excise duty as well as state excise duty was payable. That was the second disadvantage. At the same time, you are getting assessed with central government for excise duty and with state government for VAT. Then the third point was, old system was origin of destination based as well as consumption based, destination based as well as origin based. For example, CST was origin based taxation, and that is not good. In fact, if you remember old POP rules in service tax, for example, rule 9 where it is intermediary. For intermediary services, POP is location of service provider. So that again may be an origin based tax. Internationally we have accepted that all the taxation should be destination based. In the old tax laws, the third point of disadvantage was some of the taxes were origin based taxes. CST was definitely an origin based taxes, and that was creating a complication. Fourth disadvantage was formation of separate economic spheres on account of varied VAT laws in the country with different rates and tax practices. Every state has different VAT laws and every state had different VAT rates. That was creating a distortion in the economy. We always wanted to achieve one nation, one economy. But because of the different VAT laws, the states were competing with each other, and that was creating a segments in the economy. One nation, one economy concept was not taking place. That was the reason. The reason behind that was there were different VAT laws in the country and VAT rates were different. Then there were tariff barriers. Octroi was creating an entry barrier. Manufacturer will not like to sell goods in few areas because of the cumbersome octroi procedures, and a different segment was all again created. My fifth point of disadvantage was that there was a creation of tariff and non-tariff trade and tax barriers such as octroi, entry tax, check post, etc., which was hindering the free flow of trade. Again, because of octroi rules, octroi was heavy. Octroi compliance was very cumbersome. It was very time consuming, which was creating a sort of position of disadvantage for free movement of goods in India, and it was resulted into creation of tax barriers. That was another point of disadvantage. High compliance cost. Because of multiple taxes, same assessee was getting registered with so many different departments, and which resulted into higher compliance cost for him. That was the sixth point. And the last and the most important is that old indirect tax has cascading effect. What are the various ways the cascading was taking place? I have noted down the points here. The first is inclusion of SINVAT in the value imposing VAT. Please understand, how do you calculate VAT liability under old law? Suppose my selling price is 100 rupees and my excise duty liability is 110. That is becoming base for calculation of VAT. Suppose VAT rate is 4%, then I am paying 4.40 as VAT. In other words, VAT is also paid on excise duty. So that was leading to cascading effect. It was tax on tax. This 40 paisa was nothing but tax on tax. So first point, inclusion of SINVAT in the value for imposing VAT was resulting into cascading effect. Second point, non-integration of VAT with service tax. If you remember If I am a service provider and suppose I have purchased my inputs. My inputs I have purchased like this: selling price plus excise duty plus VAT. I am a service provider. I am providing output services. On my output services, whatever I am charging, whatever service charge I am charging to my customer, I have service tax liability, I have SBC liability, I have KKC liability. But a service provider does not have VAT liability. As a result, VAT paid on purchase, he was never able to take ITC. He was always adding VAT to his cost. That is the second point which I have mentioned here. One of the reasons for cascading effect was non-integration of VAT with service tax. Third, its CST is not VATable. That is, we have already studied that at IPCC level also. When goods are transferred from Maharashtra to Gujarat, 2% CST was charged and CST credit ITC was not available. So CST was resulting into cascading effect. Next point, non-availability of cross-utilization of taxes, that is utilization of central government levies against state government levies and vice versa, leading to cascading of taxes. For example, on my products, selling price plus excise duty plus VAT, and this is bought by somebody and he has state excise duty. My buyer has state excise duty liability. Now the question is excise duty liability, that is excise duty liability paid under Central Excise Act. SINVAT credit of that, whether it can be used for state excise duty liability, and the answer is no. So the point is that non-availability of cross-utilization of taxes, that is utilization of central government levies against state government levies and vice versa, was not available. Next point, non-availability of certain state government levies as set off against other state government levies. If my goods have suffered Maharashtra sales tax, whether it can be adjusted against Gujarat sales tax liability, and answer is no. The Maharashtra sales tax can be adjusted only against Maharashtra sales tax liability. Cross utilization of sales tax between different state governments was not allowed. That was also resulting into cascading effect, and no SINVAT after manufacturing stage. SINVAT was available only for the manufacturer, but when goods go from manufacturer to one trader, from one trader to another trader, the trader was including excise duty paid into his cost. So SINVAT was not available. So typically just understand, manufacturer had sold goods to a trader 100 plus 10, 110 rupees plus VAT 4 rupees, 4.40, 4.40. It goes to the trader. Trader will book cost as 110. He may get credit of 4.40. ITC that he has paid, he is getting credit, but excise duty paid, he is not getting credit. So he was treating cost as 110. Suppose his profit margin is another 40 rupees. So his selling price was 150 rupees, and on 150 rupees he was paying VAT at 4% equal to 6 rupees. Please understand, while paying VAT, even excise duty got included in that. So because SINVAT credit of excise duty was not available for traders, it also resulted into cascading effect. Point noted, there were so many disadvantages into old tax system, and because of that we need to think about giving up that, and that is what made the GST introduction necessary. Next point, which is a possible question, is what are the various events that took place. Question can come, what is genesis of GST in India? And important events right from the beginning that took place are given in the order. First event that happened was Kelkar Task Force in 2004, because of all these disadvantages, strongly recommended fully integrated GST on national basis. So actually there the discussion about GST started. Kelkar committee, considering all the disadvantages of existing tax system, and because they wanted to achieve one nation one tax, and they wanted to achieve one nation one market, and they wanted to achieve a seamless credit, they made recommendation that integrated GST should be introduced. That was the first event. Second, that time Finance Minister P. Chidambaram in his central budget 2007-8 announced that GST would be introduced in April 2010. That was the second event, but nothing happened for next few years. When NDA government came into power in 2014, they have introduced the bill in the parliament, and Rajya in Lok Sabha passed that bill on 6th May GST bills, and Rajya Sabha passed that bills on 3rd August 2016. Subsequent to ratification of bill by more than 50% of the states, Constitution Amendment Bill was received assent by President, and it became Constitutional Amendment Act in 2016 on 27th March. It became Constitutional Amendment on 27th March 2017. So first thing that has happened is that NDA government introduced Constitutional Amendment Bill 2014 on GST in the Parliament, and Lok Sabha passed it on 6 May 2015, and Rajya Sabha passed it on 3rd August 2016. This is about Constitutional Amendment Bill. Subsequently, more than 50% of the states ratified it, and then it received assent from the President. That was the second event. Then central GST legislations, namely all those acts, CGST, SGST, in the bill form were presented. Lok Sabha passed these bills on 29th of March 2017 and received assent of President on 12th April 2017, and these bills were enacted. First, they were, as usual, they were introduced in the bill form, and then after the Parliaments passed it, and after the assent of President on 12th April 2017, they were enacted as the Act. The enactment of the central acts is being followed up by enactment of state GST laws. As you know, we have federal structure, so we are going to have one CGST Act, and every state is going to have SGST Act. SGST Act is actually nothing but copy paste of CGST Act, but still every state has to pass SGST Act. So now started the chain of all states passing their respective SGST Acts. Among them, Telangana, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Punjab, Goa, Bihar were among the few states, but as of now all states, of course other than Jammu and Kashmir, has passed this, and all state GST Acts are in place. Now every administrative procedure is completed, Constitution is amended, central acts have been enacted, states act have been enacted, and now, as you know, government is planning to roll out GST on 1st July 2017. These are the important events. So a question can come in the examination about the landmarks in GST implementation, landmark events into GST implementation. That is what I was discussing. A side note for this: France was the first country to implement GST. That was in the year 1954, and within the last 62 years, almost 160 countries across the world have introduced GST. So that was about genesis of GST in India. Now, next point or next possible question is, what are the constitutional amendments that were required to make GST applicable? So that is a possible question. What are the constitutional amendment made so as to implement GST, which I have discussed here. The significant amendments which were made by 101st Amendment Act 2016 are as follows. The first is concurrent power on Parliament and state legislature to make laws governing goods and services. Previously, service tax was under the power only of central government, and excise duty was also only under central government, and सेल्स के ऊपर वैट एंड सीएसटी वाज ऑन स्टेट गवर्नमेंट. बट नाउ बोथ ऑन गुड्स एंड सर्विसेस सेंट्रल as well as state governments can simultaneously charge GST. So concurrent power on Parliament and state legislature to make laws governing goods and services, that was the first amendment required. Second, levy of IGST on interstate transaction. Intrastate transaction, as I already explained, CGST and SGST will be payable. Union territory transaction, union territory transaction, CGST and UTGST will be payable, but interstate transaction, IGST will be payable. IGST will be levied by central government, and out of that whatever is the SGST portion will be paid to the destination stage. But power was required to central government, to Parliament, to levy IGST on interstate transaction. Constitutional amendment was required for that. So that is the second point, levy of IGST on interstate transaction of goods and services to be levied and collected by central government and apportioned between union and the states in the manner provided by the Parliament by law as per recommendation of GST Council. Third, principles of determining place of supply. Please understand, whether CGST and SGST is payable or whether IGST is payable, that depends on whether it is intrastate transaction or whether it is interstate transaction. And supplier we can identify, but which is the place of supply? How to decide that? There has to be rules for that. Like we have had rules in service tax, POP rules, we have POS rules, place of supply. So Parliament requires the power to make such rules. Parliament requires the power to make rules to decide where the goods are deemed to have been supplied. That amendment was required. So that is the third point. Principles for determining the place of supply and when supply takes place, that is time of supply, in the course of interstate or commerce shall be formulated by the Parliament by law. So for deciding place of supply and time of supply, Parliament requires power to decide that, and for that power was to be given. That was the constitutional amendment. GST will be levied on all supply of goods and services except alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Yes, alcoholic liquor for human consumption has been kept out of GST. Then 5 petroleum products for time being are not brought under GST. So that was the amendment required. Then union government shall retain the power to levy of duty of excise on aforesaid product besides tobacco and tobacco products manufactured or produced in India, irrespective of GST, on 5 petroleum products, and on tobacco union government needs the power. So constitutional amendment entry number 84 was amended accordingly. Now entry number 84 says that union government, central government still has power to levy excise duty on 5 petroleum products, plus they have power to levy excise duty on tobacco also. That means on tobacco simultaneously GST will be payable, also excise duty will be payable. On alcoholic liquor for human consumption only state excise duty will be payable, but on these 5 products plus tobacco, on these 5 products only excise duty will be payable, and on tobacco GST plus excise duty will be payable. Article 279A of the Constitution empowers the President to constitute a joint forum of central and states, namely Goods and Service Tax Council, GST Council. Here in the Act, reference is several places is to GST Council. All the recommendations about what should be the rates, what should be place of supply rules, all the recommendations are done by GST Council. So the amendment was required for formation of GST Council. These are the important amendments in the constitution that were required and that were being made. Also, you can have a short note on GST Council. How does GST Council is formed? Who are the members of GST Council? Have a look at it. The provisions relating to GST Council came into force from 12th September 2016. President constituted GST Council on 15th September 2016. Who is the chairman of GST Council? Union Finance Minister is the chairman of the council. Who are the other members of GST Council? State Finance Ministers and Union Minister of Finance. So Minister in charge of Finance and Taxation or any other minister nominated by each of the state and union territories with legislature are its members. Besides, Union Ministers of State in charge of Revenue or Finance also is member. So GST Council, who are the members? Who is the chairman of the GST Council and who are the other members of GST Council? That is we have discussed here. And what are the functions of GST Council? Functions of GST Council is to make various recommendations, and recommendations will be regarding like threshold exemption, composition schemes, GST rate, GST legislations, including rules and notifications. So GST Council is going to play a very important role, and that is what is also part of constitutional amendment. Here we have completed what are the various constitutional amendments that was required to implement GST. Next is what is concept of GST, and there are 4 points. First of all, it is value added tax on goods and services. What do you mean by value added tax? Value added tax means whatever taxes you have paid on purchase will become available as input tax credit to you, and on your supply you have a liability. While paying liability, you will end up using all your input tax credit, and that is the reason net you will end up paying tax only on your value addition. So first concept of GST is that GST is value added tax. Second, no differentiation between goods and services. Previous laws, there was difference between goods and services. Excise and custom was payable, or VAT was payable on goods, and service tax was payable on service tax. But under GST, both goods and services, there is no point of difference between the two. On both, GST is payable. Third, comprehensive and continuous chain of tax credit. Here, total cascading effect is nullified. After some time we are going to look at some illustrations, and where I have proved my point that there is a seamless credit. Both these points, point number 3 and point number 4, are in fact talking same thing because of comprehensive and continuous chain of credits. Whatever taxes you have paid, you may have paid either IGST, or you may have paid either CGST and SGST, or you may have paid either CGST and UTGST. Whatever tax you have paid on purchase becomes available as input tax credit, and which you can use for discharging your liabilities. So there is a comprehensive and continuous chain of tax, and net it results that there is no cascading effect. So that is the concept of GST. That is yet another question possible. What is concept of GST? Next point that we have to learn is what are the taxes that have subsumed into GST. And you must understand, most of the old central and state indirect taxes have subsumed into GST. So which are the central levies which have subsumed? Of course, the central excise duty under medicine and toilet preparations, service tax, CVD and special CVD. If you remember, if you import goods, CVD was payable 3.1, which was equal to excise duty, and 3.5, which we call it as special CVD, which was equal to always 4%, that has subsumed. Central sales tax CST has subsumed, and surcharges and cesses like SBAC, KKC, then infrastructure cess, all of them have subsumed into GST. Which all state level taxes have subsumed? The state cesses and surcharges insofar as they relate to supply of goods and services. So VAT, CST, VAT is subsumed. Then Entertainment tax, unless it is levied by local bodies, has subsumed. Taxes on lottery, betting and gambling, if you remember, it was part of schedule 2, list 2, अपना शेड्यूल 7 का लिस्ट 2 में स्टेट में लॉटरी बेटिंग गैमलिंग लिखा था. सो टैक्सेस ऑन लॉटरी बेटिंग गैमलिंग विच वाज स्टेट्स परव्यू हैज सबस्यूम्ड. देन एंट्री टैक्स लाइक ऑक्ट्रॉय एक्सेट्रा हैज सबस्यूम्ड. वैट एंड सेल्स टैक्स हैव सबस्यूम्ड. लग्जरी टैक्स हैव सबस्यूम्ड एंड टैक्सेस ऑन एडवर्टाइजमेंट्स हैव सबस्यूम्ड. Unfortunately, you may be required to mug it up, but then which are the taxes which have subsumed into GST? Honestly, from next time onwards, this will become IPCC portion, and our focus will be at CA final will be only on the real crux of GST. But this time it is rather theory kind of questions, first 12 pages at least. So which are the taxes which have been subsumed into GST? Please find the list on page number 3 and top of the page number 4. Next possible question, again a theory kind of a question, is what are the features of GST in India? Because dual model of GST has been introduced. So what are the really the features of GST as it is introduced in India? That is the next question. One possible question examiner may call it, what are the features of GST in India? In the module which ICAI have provided, they have called it, what are the features of dual GST model to be introduced in India? So the question can be either what are the features of GST in India, or the question can be what are the features of dual GST model to be introduced in India. And again, theory kind of question, theory kind of answer. First is GST will be extended to whole of India except state of Jammu and Kashmir. As you know, Jammu and Kashmir has yet not accepted GST. So for time being, GST is introduced to whole of India other than Jammu and Kashmir. That is the first feature. Second feature is dual GST. India has a federal structure. State government needs revenue, central government needs revenue. So we have introduced a dual structure. If it is intrastate transaction, CGST and SGST will be levied. CGST will go to the pockets of central government, SGST will go to the pockets of state government. If it is interstate transaction, IGST will be levied, but IGST has two components, CGST component and SGST component. CGST component will go to central government's pocket and SGST component will go to the pockets of the destination state. So it's a dual GST system. Third, what are the various taxes which are payable? I think I already explained you that, but once we'll repeat. If it is intrastate transaction, CGST plus SGST is payable. If it is intra-union territory transaction, CGST plus UTGST is payable. If it is interstate transaction, IGST is payable. And remember, IGST always has two components, CGST component and SGST component, or it is CGST component and UTGST component. Next feature is that there is a single legislation. Actually, just now I said that there is a CGST Act, there is a SGST Act, there is a Union Territory Act, and there is a IGST Act. But practically, and if you study, all the provisions are same. Valuation principles, returns, everything is same. We can say that though for levy purpose there are different acts, but still actually there is only one legislation. Which point I have discussed as point number 4 here, where I have written here for your note, though there would be multiple legislations, the basic feature of law such as chargeability, definition, etc. remains the same. So though we are saying there are 4 acts, in fact every state will have its own SGST Act, so there are going to be 32 acts, but still because the basic fundamental principle remains the same, I can safely say that there is a single legislation. That is the next feature. Next important feature of GST is composition scheme and relief to small scale businesses. In the beginning there was a limit of 50 lakh rupees set now it has been increased to 75 lakh rupees. But then for small dealers there is a composition scheme. They have less procedures, they have less returns to be filed, they have concessional rate of tax, but obviously moment you opt for composition scheme, the compliance part comes down heavily, but you are out of input tax credit chain. So but then still it is going to be beneficial position for small people. For small people there is a composition scheme and there is a relief to small scale businesses. That is another feature. The next feature is seamless credit. The biggest hazard of old tax system, where there was tax on tax and it was resulting into cascading effect, that is absolutely to large extent, I will say rather 99.99% extent, it has been taken care in new GST law. It is absolutely seamless credit and there is no cascading effect. Next feature is GST is absolutely destination based consumption tax. In old tax laws, for example, CST was origin based. In some of the cases service tax was also resulting into origin based, but GST is completely destination based consumption tax. Goods and services will be taxed in a state where the goods and services are consumed, and that will go to the pocket of that state where goods and services are consumed. GST is absolutely destination based consumption tax, which is the next feature. But then as you can understand, whole this is possible only if there is a strong information technology backbone. So one of the most important feature of GST is GST-IN, the GST network. This is the network which will take care of all the cross-checking, all credit transfer, destination based principle, transfer of GST from one state to another state, reconciliations, creating database, providing information to the government departments. All that will be taken care by GSTN network. So that is the point number 7. The facilities which GST network is providing, all those facilities I have listed here, but that is also one of the most important feature of GST. Without this GSTN network, it is impossible to it would have been impossible to implement GST. GSTN network is the backbone of GST system, so it is one of the important feature of GST. Then we come to last theory question: what are the benefits of GST? And here I have given all the benefits of GST. First benefit of GST is creation of unified national market. Now because single tax and because there is no cascading effect and because of seamless credit, whole country will become one economy and we can have one unified national market. That is the first advantage. Second advantage, mitigation of ill effects of cascading. Because of the seamless credit, cascading effect is gone, and that is the second benefit of GST, that to large extent some small portions, some small pockets, some cascading effect still remains, but to large extent the cascading effect has been brought down. That is the second benefit. Third, elimination of multiple taxes and double taxation. Now CGST and SGST both are payable on the value, so there is no concept of tax on tax. So that is another important benefit. One, there are no multiple taxes on all goods and services, only GST is payable, and there is no double taxation. That is for example, in old tax laws, when you go to restaurant, on restaurant bill you are ending up paying VAT also, and you are ending up paying service tax also. So there was multiple taxes and there was double taxation. But now onwards, on restaurant bill only GST will be payable. That is another benefit, that there is no multiple taxes and double taxation. Boost to Make in India initiative, that is another benefit, and total buoyancy to the government revenue. It is expected that more and more people, even from unorganized sector, will be brought under indirect taxes now, the way GST has been framed, and it will result into tremendous increase in government's revenue. These are the benefits of GST that are one of the expected questions. What are the benefits of GST? Okay, now we want to study page number 6 onwards, and now there is less of a theory, something interesting and more to learn. But before we start with basic material page number 6, let us complete the annexure. Please take the printouts of annexure in your hand. The first page that you can see is list of states in India, and as you know, there are 29 states in India. But as far as GST is concerned, GST is not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir, so I have cancelled Jammu and Kashmir. So there are 28 states. We have 7 union territories, but there are 2 union territories, namely Delhi and Pondicherry. It is written in section 2103 of CGST Act that states, union territories having their own legislatures will be considered as state for the purpose of GST. Delhi has its own legislature, Pondicherry has its own legislature. So for the purpose of GST Act, they are not union territories, they will be considered as states. So we have 28 plus 2 is equal to 30 states where GST is applicable. I have excluded Jammu and Kashmir, so we will have 30 SGST Act. I'll repeat my point once again. Delhi and Pondicherry, though they are union territories, for the purpose of GST they are deemed states, because in 2103 of CGST Act they have written state includes union territories with legislature. So because Delhi and Pondicherry have their own legislature, they will be considered as states and they will have their own SGST Act. For other union territories, namely 5, there is going to be 1 Union Territories Act. So 30 SGST Act, 1 UTGST Act, 1 CGST Act and 1 IGST Act. That is the total number of acts, but as you can understand, they are all replica of each other. Almost they are all replica of each other. So that is the first thing I want to explain. That was the first page of Annexure 1. Second page of Annexure 1. Annexure 1 आज एक बार पढ़ेंगे, बाद में इसका ज़रूरत नहीं है. So Annexure 1 second page. Here I wanted to show you section 1 of all the acts. First, let us read section 1 of Central Goods and Services Tax Act, CGST Act 2017. Section 1 says, this act may be called CGST Act and it extends to whole of India except state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, if you read any of the state acts, or if you read any of if you read UTGST Act, or if you read IGST Act, same thing is copy paste. For example, in IGST Act also, this act may be called Integrated Goods and Service Tax Act 2017. The name has changed, but it shall extend to whole of India except state of Jammu and Kashmir. My point is that there are going to be 30 plus 3, 33 acts, but they are all replica of each other. As I said, there is one more act, GST Compensation to States Act 2017, but as of now, for November 2017, for 10 marks, it has not been made as part of syllabus, so we are not discussing about it. We have basically 4 acts, 1 CGST Act, 1 SGST Act, 1 UTGST Act and 1 we have IGST Act. Now I come to the third page of the annexure, and mind you, this is charging sections, and if you see the charging sections, they are just copy paste of each other. For example, there is a point of difference. For example, CGST Act and SGST Act are copy paste of each other. IGST Act has minor differences and UTGST Act is also copy paste of CGST Act. एक बार CGST Act पढ़ते हैं. Subject to provisions of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called CGST on intrastate supplies. So if it is CGST or SGST, it is payable on intrastate supply. Same is the case with UTGST Act. Subject to provisions of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called UTGST Act. I'll repeat my point once again. On intrastate transaction, CGST and SGST is payable. If it is Union Territory, CGST and UTGST is payable. But if you read IGST Act, subject to provisions of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called Integrated Goods and Service Tax on all interstate supplies. Moment it is interstate supply, IGST is payable. Now, subject to that name of the act is different. All the other sections, they are copy paste of each other. So I am going to read only CGST Act, and wherever there is a point of difference, I am going to talk about it. I am reading CGST Act once again. The charging section. Subject to provisions of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called CGST on all intrastate supplies of goods or services or both, except on supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. So alcoholic liquor for human consumption is not covered by GST. On the value determined under section 15. Hello, if you remember, in excise, valuation was handled by section 3.2, section 4a, section 4.1a and section 4.1b. In service tax, valuation was handled by section 67, and in customs, valuation was handled by section 14. And all those duties were payable on value determined under respective section. Here, for GST, valuation section there is only one, and it is section 15 of CGST Act. Maybe IGST, maybe UTGST. Reference is only as far as valuation is concerned. Valuation is done as per section 15 of CGST Act. So other than alcoholic liquor for human consumption on value determined under section 15 and at such rates not exceeding 20% as may be notified by government on the recommendation of the council and collected in such a manner as may be prescribed and shall be paid by taxable person. He is saying, so reading them all collectively, he is saying if it is interstate transaction, CGST and SGST will be payable. If it is inter-union territory transaction, CGST and UTGST will be payable. And if it is intrastate transaction, CGST and SGST will be payable. If it is intra-UTGST transaction, CGST and UTGST will be payable, and if it is interstate transaction, IGST will be payable. For all these acts, valuation will be done as per the provisions given under section 15 of CGST Act, and GST is not payable on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Rates will be as notified by the government on the recommendation of GST Council, and it cannot be more than 20%, and it will be payable in the manner prescribed, and it will be payable by taxable person. That was first point. As far as IGST Act is concerned, there is minor difference. What he is trying to say here, I will explain. If you remember, under the old laws, if you are importing goods, which all duties were payable? BCD was payable, 3.1 was payable, EC of custom is payable, SHEC of custom was payable, and 3.5 was payable. Now EC of custom, SHEC of custom has subsumed, 3.1 has subsumed, and 3.5 has subsumed, and on that IGST will be payable. What he is saying that on imported goods, now IGST will be payable. In other words, first conclusion, import of goods will be considered as interstate transaction. Remember, if it is intrastate, CGST, SGST is payable. If it is interstate, IGST is payable. First and very important conclusion we have understood, import of goods will be considered as interstate transaction and IGST will be payable. Also, let us read that language. Provided that integrated tax on goods imported into India shall be levied and collected in accordance with the provisions of Section 3 of Custom Tariff Act 1975 on value as determined under said Act at the point when duties of customs are levied on the said goods under Section 12 of Customs Act 1962. So what he is saying, previously on imported goods all this you are paying, but now whenever goods are imported, first of all it will be considered as interstate transaction. Valuation of goods will continue to be as per Section 12 of Customs Act. First duty that will be payable is BCD. Valuation will continue to be under Section 14 of Customs Act. As per Customs Act, first duty that is payable is BCD, the charge of which is created by Section 12, and then next duty that is payable is IGST, charge of which will be created by Section 3 of Custom Tariff Act. In the old law, Section 3 of Custom Tariff Act was creating charge of 3.1, EC of Custom, SHEC of Custom and 3.5. They have subsumed now. Now import of goods transaction will be considered as interstate transaction, and on the imported goods over and above BCD, IGST will be payable. That is what he is saying. That was study of subsection 1. Then I am on subsection 2. The central tax on supply of petroleum, crude, high-speed oil, diesel, motor. Hello, the 5 petroleum products for time being have been kept out of GST, but they will be levied with effect from such date as may be notified by government on recommendation of the council. The 5 petroleum products have not been brought under GST. They will be brought in GST after some particular days, date to be notified by government on recommendation of council. All common sections. Third, this is about reverse charge. There are going to be some goods and services which government is going to notify by recommendation of GST council, where reverse charge will become applicable, and in respect of supply of those goods and services, liability to pay GST is going to be on recipient. That is what subsection 3 is saying, which is again common for all 3 acts. Let us once read this. The government on the recommendation of the council by notification specify categories of supply of goods or services or both, the tax on which shall be paid on reverse charge basis by the recipient of such goods or services or both, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipient as if he is the person liable for paying the tax in relation to the supply of such goods or services or both. I think this is like 68(2) of service tax. What he is saying, that there are going to be some goods and some services which will be notified by the government on the recommendation of GST council. If those goods or services have been supplied, reverse charge becomes applicable. Liability to pay service tax will not be on the supplier, it will be on recipient. Which all goods and which all services, that will be separately notified. Fourth subsection is a very important and very different. What he is saying is like this. Suppose you are buying from unregistered dealer, unregistered supplier. Liability to pay GST is on recipient. This is unique feature of GST which has created a problem in the industry. Many people are requesting government to give up this. What I am trying to say is like this. There is one supplier here and there is one supplier here. Both of them are in business, but because he is small or because he is from unorganized sector, this supplier is unregistered dealer. He is URD, he is not registered under GST, and he has made supply of goods and services, not notified any goods and services where value is 1 lakh. Suppose total GST payable on this, including CGST and SGST, suppose total GST payable is 18,000 rupees. If your supplier is unregistered, by default reverse charge become applicable and GST liability on this will have to be paid by recipient. That is what the next section is saying. I am reading that section for you. It is subsection 4. The central tax in respect of the supply of taxable goods or services or both by a supplier who is not registered to a registered person shall be paid by such person on reverse charge basis as the recipient, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipient as if he is the person liable for paying the tax in relation to supply of such goods or services or both. Again, this is common for all the taxes. If supplier is unregistered, then liability to pay GST is on recipient recipient, and that is the very different section altogether. That was subsection number 4. Then subsection number 5, here is the repeat of aggregator concept. If you remember, in service tax there was a concept, so this number 5 is applicable only for services. Here what he is trying to say, we are going to notify some services. If those services are provided by e-commerce operator, then liability to pay service tax will be on e-commerce operator. Now if that e-commerce operator is from place outside India, then liability to pay service tax will be on his representative in India. And suppose e-commerce operator has neither presence in India nor he has representative in India, then it is his liability to appoint an agent in India, and in that case person liable to pay GST will be that agent. These are the provisions which are copy paste of what we have read in the aggregator concept. So let us read them together once. I am reading subsection 5, which is the last page. The government may, on the recommendation of the council by notification, specify category of services. So this is applicable only for services. The tax on intrastate supplies of which shall be paid by the electronic commerce operator if such services are supplied through it, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such electronic commerce operator as if he is the supplier liable for paying the tax in relation to supply of such services. He is saying we are going to notify recommendation of the council by notification, specify category of services. We are going to notify category of services. If those services are supplied through electronic commerce operator, liability to pay service tax is going to be on electronic commerce operator, and we'll assume that he is person liable to pay GST, and all provisions of GST as regarding registration etc. will become applicable to him as if he is a supplier, provided that when an electronic commerce operator does not have physical presence in taxable territory, any person representing such electronic commerce operator for any purpose in the taxable territory shall be liable to pay tax. If that electronic commerce operator does not have physical presence in India, then liability to pay GST will be on his representative in India. Provided further that where an electronic commerce operator does not have a physical presence in taxable territory and also he does not have representative in the said territory, such electronic commerce operator shall appoint a person in taxable territory for the purpose of paying tax, and such person shall be liable to pay tax. If that electronic commerce operator does not have physical presence in India, neither he has representative in India, then it is his liability to appoint a person as an agent, and liability to pay GST will be on such an agent. I have concluded the study of annexure. Next time onwards you need not read that, but those same conclusions I have copy pasted on page number 6, 7 and 8. So let us study page number 6, 7 and 8. All these points actually I have already explained you. It is going to work as summary for us. All the states other than Jammu and Kashmir will have own SGST Act. Just now we have seen this, that 28 states plus 2 union territories having own legislature. In all 30 states will have their own SGST Act. 2 UTs having their own legislation will have own SGST Act. Delhi and Pondicherry, though they are union territories, they will have their own SGST Act. To other union territories, UTGST Act will be applicable. Supply between 2 states is interstate supply. Supply within the state is intrastate supply. Supply within union territory is also intrastate supply. This is one point, please note down. Supply within the state is intrastate, and supply within the union territory also, we don't call it intra-union territory. For the purpose of GST, we also call it intrastate supply. I will repeat, supply within the state is also intrastate supply, and supply within the union territory is also intrastate supply. On intrastate supply, CGST and SGST is payable. On intra-union territory supply, CGST and UTGST is payable. On interstate supply, IGST is payable. If goods are imported into India, then after BCD, now IGST will be payable, because import of goods will be treated as interstate supply for the purpose of GST. And remember, moment it is interstate supply, IGST is payable. So that is my point number 10. I will read it out for you. Goods imported into India will be considered as interstate supply, so IGST is payable. Next point, IGST is equal to CGST plus SGST. I already told you IGST will have 2 components, either CGST plus SGST or CGST plus UTGST. For all these acts, how to determine value? Either CGST or SGST or IGST is payable on value. How do you arrive at value? For all the acts, only one section, section 15 of CGST Act. If you are concerned with how to value goods, the answer is given by section 15 of CGST Act. That is my next point. As you know, alcoholic liquor for human consumption is kept out of GST. CGST, SGST, UTGST on supply of petroleum products. As you know, 5 petroleum products for time being have not brought in GST. They will be brought in GST at some other date which will be notified. That is my point number 14. Tobacco will attract both excise duty under Central Excise Act also, and tobacco will attract GST also. So tobacco and tobacco products will be subjected both to excise duty as well as GST. Who is going to decide the rate? Central government is going to decide the rate, but they will be decided at the recommendation of GST Council. That is my next point. Maximum rate for CGST and SGST and UTGST is 20%, and maximum rate for IGST is 40%. And as of now, the rates that have been declared are 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%. That is payable by taxable person. This was the conclusions of levy portion. We have to learn one definition of India, and that is the same definition what we have learnt in service tax also. What is India? Whole of geographical mass, including Jammu and Kashmir. I am not saying where GST is applicable. I am only defining India. Whole of geographical mass, including Jammu and Kashmir. From the baseline, you travel 12 nautical miles inside the sea. Up to this imaginary line, we call it territorial waters of India. From the baseline, you travel 200 nautical miles inside the sea. Up to this imaginary line, we call it as exclusive economic zone. Then what is India for the purpose of GST? Whole of landmass, that is landmass of states, landmass of union territories including Jammu and Kashmir, extendable up to TWI. The seabed and subsoil below TWI, the airspace above landmass extendable up to TWI, and waters extended up to exclusive economic zone. That is the definition of India. I'll repeat it once again. Whole of landmass including Jammu and Kashmir, extendable up to TWI, seabed and subsoil below the TWI, airspace above the landmass extendable up to TWI, and waters up to exclusive economic zone. That is the definition of India, which is given at the bottom of page number 6. That was about levy and that was about definition of India. Now conclusion of RCM. From the charging section, I have already explained you what is the conclusion of charging section. Basically there are two types of reverse charge. One, there are going to be some goods and services which will be notified by central government on recommendation of council, where reverse charge will be applicable. Liability to pay GST will be on recipient. That is one reverse charge. And if supplier is unregistered, by default there is going to be reverse charge and liability to pay will be on recipient. That is two reverse charge I have mentioned here. Also, what is the definition of reverse charge? The definition of reverse charge is given by 298 of CGST Act. Let us read it together. Reverse charge means liability to pay tax by recipient of supply of goods or services or both, instead of supplier of such goods or services or both under section so and so, so and so, so and so. Please understand, when electronic commerce operator is paying, that is not reverse charge. When recipient is paying, so electronic commerce operator is neither supplier nor recipient, and when he is paying, that is not part of reverse charge. Reverse charge is only when recipient of goods, recipient of supply is paying GST. That is the only example of reverse charge. So ye page ka conclusion once I will draw. Reverse charge, there are two possibilities under GST. Some supply of goods and services which are notified by government on recommendation of council, there may be reverse charge introduced by notification, where liability to pay GST will be on recipient. Second, wherever supplier is unregistered, by default there is automatic reverse charge and liability to pay GST is on recipient. So that is the two example. And reverse charge means the situation where liability is shifted on recipient, that is called as reverse charge. But if liability is shifted on any third person, like on electronic commerce operator, that is not the case of reverse charge. That was the conclusion of page number 7. Page number 8 is about electronic commerce operator. यहाँ पे what is the conclusion? Let us revise it first. There are going to be some notified services. If those notified services are provided through electronic commerce operator, then liability to pay service tax will be neither on service provider nor on service receiver. It will be on electronic commerce operator, and moment electronic commerce operator is person liable to pay GST, all provisions of GST Act will become applicable to him. If such electronic commerce operator has presence in India, then he will pay. But if he does not have presence in India, his representative will pay GST. But suppose he neither has physical presence nor he has representative in India, he has to appoint a person in India, and liability to pay GST will be on such a person. That is all the conclusions here. But with that, we have to also learn two definitions. What do you mean by electronic commerce operator and what do you mean by electronic commerce? First, let us understand what is electronic commerce. Electronic commerce means supply of goods or services or both, including digital products over digital or electronic network. So, electronic commerce means via digital method, via electronic methods, when goods or services either in physical form or in digital form are supplied. That is what you call it as electronic commerce. And then in that case, who is electronic commerce operator? Electronic commerce operator is given by 245 of CGST Act, and he says electronic commerce operator means any person who owns, operates or manages digital or electronic facility or platform for electronic commerce. So I am talking about Flipkart. Flipkart has provided a platform via which you can buy and sell goods and services, where supply of goods and services is possible. That is what you call it as electronic commerce operator. Here I have some points to note about electronic commerce operator. It includes every person who directly or indirectly owns or operates or manages digital electronic facility or platform for supply of goods or services, or both. Via electronic platform you can supply either goods or services or both. There is one point of dispute, one small confusion in the industry. Suppose some shirts manufacturer, for example, some shirts manufacturer starts his own site platform, and from where he is also selling his goods electronically. Matlab delivery will be through physical means, but supply of goods, supply of shirts will be via his site platform. Via Facebook, via WhatsApp, he is marketing his product, and some sale, some supply is also taking place through that site. Whether person supplying his own products via his own platform, whether he is also included in the definition of electronic commerce, there is a confusion about it. Certainly Flipkart, which is a marketplace for anybody's goods, certainly it is electronic commerce, but whether individual manufacturer manufacturing his goods and supplied through his own platform, whether it is also electronic commerce, there is point of dispute. So that is my second point. If it is provisioning of service like Ola Cabs, then it is aggregator, and by definition aggregator is also electronic commerce operator, because what is aggregator? Via electronic means via electronic platform he is supplying services. So even aggregator is also included in the definition of e-commerce, and under GST law even aggregators would be covered under the definition of e-commerce operators. So that is about e-commerce operator, and which is study of page number 7 and 8. Okay. Now we will have to learn about input tax credit. Page number 9, 10, 11 and 12 is about input tax credit. Here let me tell you, page number 10, 11 and 12, the illustration is not my illustration, it is the illustration given by institute. So I have just copy pasted that. But then here page number 9, whatever illustrations, they are my illustrations. Let us try to understand. Whatever GST you have paid on your purchase, it may be IGST, it may be CGST, or it may be SGST or UTGST, will become available as credit to you. And how to use it? Is there any order of usage? Yes, there is order of usage, but before we study that order, one point you must understand, that CGST credit cannot be used for SGST liability. Make that point clear. And SGST credit cannot be used for CGST liability. Subject to that, then there is a way you can use your credit. For example, if it is IGST credit and in the given month you have also IGST liability, so IGST credit should be first used for IGST liability, then it can be used for CGST liability, and then it can be used for SGST liability, or as the case may be for UTGST liability. If it is CGST credit, first it should be used for CGST liability. If there is any balance, it can be used for IGST liability. As I have already said, CGST credit cannot be used for SGST, or CGST credit cannot be used for UTGST. If it is SGST credit, SGST credit first should be used for SGST liability, or next it can be used for IGST liability, but as you can know, SGST credit cannot be used for CGST liability. Same way, if you have UTGST credit, first it should be used for UTGST liability, then it can be used for IGST liability, But as you can understand, UTGST credit cannot be used for CGST liability. So this is the order in which you can use the credit. Now based on that, let us have some illustrations. First illustration, X Limited, A Limited and B Limited, all of them are from Maharashtra. X Limited is also from Maharashtra, A Limited is also from Maharashtra and B Limited is also from Maharashtra. Here A Limited has purchased goods from X Limited. In other words, X Limited supplied goods to A Limited. X is the supplier, place of supply is also in Maharashtra. This is intra-state transaction on this CGST and SGST will be payable. Suppose value of goods was 1 lakh, then X Limited, suppose rate for whole of this, I assumed rate to be 9%. In that case, X Limited will charge CGST 9,000 rupees and SGST 9,000 rupees, 1,18,000 rupees. A Limited got ITC of 9,000 CGST and they got 9,000 SGST. Second transaction, A Limited had sold same goods to B Limited for 1,20,000. Same goods they have sold to B Limited for 1,20,000. This again is intrastate transaction, and because it is intrastate transaction, again on this transaction CGST and SGST will be payable at the rate of 9%. Total CGST liability will be 10,800 and total SGST liability will be 10,800. This is how A Limited will supply goods to B Limited. A Limited has supplied goods, same goods which they have purchased from X Limited. They have supplied it to B Limited, which they have purchased for 1 lakh. They have sold it, they have supplied it for 1,20,000. This is also intrastate transaction. On that also CGST and SGST is payable at the rate of 9%. It is 10,800 and 10,800. Now A Limited will have to discharge CGST 10,800. For that they will use credit of CGST. They have credit of 9,000, so they will pay 1,800 by cash. They also have SGST liability of 10,800. They have to pay it to state government of Maharashtra, while they will use SGST credit of 9,000 and they will pay 1,800 in cash. Please have look at the illustrations. I have given 3 illustrations, simple illustrations which are self-explanatory about how the credit is exactly used, and this is also followed up by one illustration given by Institute, which is on page number 10, 11 and 12. I think it is very simple to learn it. Anyway, every student has to apply his mind once. It is not necessary that I should explain it to you. All these illustrations are very self-explanatory. The guidance line is very simple. CGST credit cannot be used for SGST liability. SGST credit cannot be used for CGST liability. But when it comes to IGST credit, in priority it should be used for IGST liability, then it should be used for CGST liability, then as the case may be it should be used for SGST or UTGST. Same way, CGST credit should be used for CGST liability or it can be used for IGST liability, but it cannot be used for SGST liability. Same way, SGST credit can be used for SGST liability or it can be used for IGST liability, but it cannot be used for CGST liability. These are the first 12 pages, which was honestly Other than charging section, levy and ITC, it was theory and theory, rather a IPCC kind of portion. I have tried my level best to explain it to you. The second lecture about supply should be more interesting for you. Thank you.